You're raising very interesting points. So my question is, where do we stand in all of that as Africa? Where do we stand? Because you really mentioned something that really struck me. Our relationship with China will become much more important politically, and we're gonna have to look into what's going to happen there. So where do we stand in all of that? Because now you have a code-like
Mm.
situation where we are back in the almost in the 70s 80s, where you talk about the rhetoric coming from western capitals, western country. It's focused on security, we have to safeguard our supply chain. It's really a lot of security focused rhetoric. It's like us versus them. We read back to that time. So when you have that and you see the strategic competition happening, the interest to come back to Africa to talk about the PGII, Global Gateway, all those initiatives all come together, and you have also China being there. China changing, China going from a New Belt Road Initiative kind of approach, what I call the BRI 2.0. The question is, where do we stand in that configuration? Keeping in mind the internal dynamic of many African countries, where now you have coups that happen in Sahel and everything, the landscape changing. The US that was hoping that Niger will be much more amicable to them. Now they're kicking them out to let the Russian coming in. All of that. Where do we stand, and how do we approach that tumultuous period that's coming ahead of us? Are we going? Do we have to anticipate regime change coming from outside, or we are really away from that period? We have new dynamics that going to happen.
Yeah, with the deterioration of relations between China and the US, and also with Russia and the US, and also with Europe, the the thing about the Cold War is that, and this has been said many times, that it's Cold War for the main players and a hot war for the rest of the world who do not understand how to play with the main players.
To play the game.
Exactly. So the Cold War era was very devastating for the continent. We saw so much, uh, I mean, and the dynamics are very clear. Again, that we're entering that space. So there's a space race again is back. There's weaponization. Talk about weaponizing space. There is fragmentation, and collapse of multilateralism. Then the UN Security Council and UN can't really do anything anymore. We're seeing coups, and so all of the dynamics we saw during the Cold War are coming back. And if Africa is to protect itself, and not protect itself, but also capitalize on the dynamics, because this is politics at the end of the day, it has to understand what red lines it has to draw in all of its relationship with all of these players. One of the mistake a country
Yeah.
can make in this kind of environment is hosting military bases, because by doing that you are automatically aligning yourself. That's why in Niger, for instance,
But you have the case of Djibouti. You have the case of Djibouti
mm,
where you have American,
mm.
Chinese, Europeans all together though.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
with
that
Djibouti is an exceptional case in the sense for a couple of reasons. One,
yeah.
those bases are there primarily, yes, for competition, but for logistical reasons, as
Yeah.
opposed to um, competing with China or with the US. Because when the competition is that steep and very Cold War like, you can't have both bases in the same country. But now Djibouti, in many ways, you could say it hosts over 7 bases. The Italians are there, the Japanese are there, the Chinese are there, the Americans are there. Everybody
The French
yeah,
are there and
everybody
everything,
is
yeah.
there. But next door to Djibouti, we have countries like Somalia, countries where that hosted those big bases like Limonier, that were really about counterterrorism and all of that. So it still has that component to it. But we know that all of these bases are going to play a role in the competition amongst each other. Military bases should not, foreign military bases should be should be only when you really want to align. You cannot have a military base and say you're not aligned. You will want to stay out of. Every African leader likes to say that they don't want to play a role in the Cold War or in group competition. They want to be able to deal with both sides. No, you can't do that when you have a military base of one side
Exactly.
in your country. You just can't eat your cake and have it. So that's the first thing, because one, it makes you a target for the other side, and then two, makes you an accomplice in whatever operation was done to a neighboring African country from that base.
Definitely,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Definitely.
this is going to be very, very crucial for countries going forward, and you can already see it with all of the anxiety about whether China wants to build a naval base in this country or that country, Equatorial Guinea or that. And even now in the news in Nigeria now, there is news about the US wanting and France discussing with Nigerian government, of which the government has come out to say that's not happening because of the uproar about
Yeah.
even the idea that the Nigerian government is discussing hosting, French or
A
American
base.
bases, yes,
Yeah.
on Nigerian soil. So we understand that very well here, and I think in most countries they will come to that, because in Mali, in Niger, in Burkina Faso, they are already choosing a particular pole in their engagement. It serves their interest now because they are trying to push out the French and the Americans and all of that. But how will they be able to manage the downstream complications of this relationship? I think that remains to be seen, because things get ugly very fast in this kind of environment.
Yeah, because let's face it, we talk about Russia big game, but Russia never really invested in those countries so far, except security support with the Wagner group. But we haven't seen a lot of Russia economic and industrial engagement in those countries either. So it's not like they're winning by becoming pro-Russia. I have nothing against Russia, but we have to keep a cold mind when you really think about those issues. That are we really winning, or it's just a kind of whims that, because we hate French, because we don't like them, we are siding with those. But are they, at the end, are we really winning in that battle?
Yeah, that's something I actually wrote about in 2022 for SIRE. It's looking at Russia private military diplomacy in Africa. And look and what that really means. And like I said, you have to understand how these countries are defining winning in the first place. The main priority of
Yeah.
Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali is security. It's not first economic. It is security, and
Yeah.
first of all, it starts with regime security. So in the hierarchy of the objectives. So if you can achieve
Yeah.
regime
Yeah. Yeah.
security first and foremost, because they know that coups and counter coups are a thing. We've seen assassination attempts on Assimi Goita of Mali. I'm sure there are so many things that have
Yeah.
not been reported that have happened under the cover, right? So they know that they first have to secure themselves and the regime. Then the issue of national security is broadened to include national security and counterterrorism, which they are collaborating with Russia, with Wagner in now it's changing to different organizations, the Redoute and all of that. So that is how you have to view this. And in that paper, I made the case that aligning with Russia actually comes with serious diplomatic costs. You would find that the West will not want
Yeah.
to collaborate with you. There are so many programs in the country that is being funded by the West that you are going to lose access to. And we've seen that happen because that is just the environment that we are in. At the same time, we also see these countries also now moving into resource nationalism to try to make up for those lost funding.
Those
Yeah,
revenues.
the Burkina Faso
Exactly.
talking about gold refining, and they moving in that direction. Mali doing the same thing, talking about how they want to even uh, tap more into their resources for themselves. Niger already now
Yeah.
have a pipeline going through Benin Republic on pumping out barrels of
Built by
yeah
Chinese. Yeah.
oil. So the economics of Russia Africa relationship is still very very is still very very low, and doesn't doesn't represent the political relationship. And that is because it is never about
Yeah.
economics in the first place. It's a deeply political
Security.
political and security
Okay.
relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also security because independence came out of so much support from the USSR. Russia Africa trade is about $18 billion. Turkey
Yeah.
trades more with Africa, actually, with
Than
more
Russia.
than $38 billion. Even Brazil at about 19 billion. So the Russians have a lot of
Yeah.
catching up to do on the economic front, and I
Yeah.
reckon that they are working in that direction. But for Africa, the the way to analyze the relationship is first looking at the attitude of the government. In Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, it is in that way I've explained. In Nigeria, it is very different because we have a different system. I'm sure in DRC also, it's going to be different. In South Africa, it's also very, very different. It's more complex. I like to say South Africa, Algeria are the gold
Morocco.
standard in Russia-Africa relationship. These countries are, yeah, and Morocco also, yeah. Morocco, South Africa, Algeria, Egypt. These four countries represent over 80 or 90% of Russia-Africa engagement. Think about that.
Yeah.
You know,
Engagement.
so trade
Yeah.
engagement. So it says a lot. It says a lot. Yeah.